I'm Colleen. My pronouns are she and her. We thank Carter for the offertory. Before retirement, I had a wonderful job teaching teachers. My Ozark writing project colleagues and I introduced every new batch of teachers to an essay by Terry Tempest Williams called Why I Write. The first lines of Williams' essay read as follows. I write to make peace with the things I cannot control. I write to discover. I write to uncover. I write to meet my ghosts. I write to begin a dialogue. I write to imagine things differently. And in imagining things differently, perhaps the world will change. I write to find the surprise at the end of the poem. I never wrote poems until my acupuncturist told me to write my stories down. I wrote to heal, to become healthy and whole. 3 first UU poets are joining me today to share their own reasons for writing, the ways in which their writing helps them become who they are, and a poem or two. I will return later to tell why I write poems now.
My name is Dacia Reed, and my pronouns are she and her. I was pleased when Colleen asked me if I would be willing to participate in a service focused on poetry. I think of myself as a person who occasionally writes something that might be poetry. When Colleen added that she was hoping that the poetry we would share would focus on becoming, the words "my hand gently held" popped into my brain. They are from a poem that I wrote in the mid-1970s. I was in my mid-20s. I was in graduate school, and my mother was battling cancer. This was a time of blossoming and coming loss. In retrospect, I can clearly see that it was a time of becoming. My hand gently held, I am ageless, never too old or too young. Valid because I am, valued for my experience, my point of view, the magic of being with another. Differences treasured, education. Pushing on likeness, growth. Struggle celebrated, fears respected, elation shared. To live life for its joy, dancing, singing, and sharing. Never viewed as broken pieces, a puzzle to be patched together. Treasured for its diversity, the scatter is respected, and the daily created whole, scattered tatters flapping in the breeze, bound together by individuality, not reason, are loved for the beauty of the shag. Poetry, as presented in English classes, fostered only the sense that I should be able to appreciate this stuff, but I didn't. However, in 2002, I became a born-again appreciator of poetry. Early that year, I experienced a spontaneous herniation of one of the discs in my lower back. It was immobilizing and a source of constant pain. Going out on disability, I had to leave a job that I loved. This was distressing. I did imagine, though, that I would have lots of time to read, and was shocked when I discovered that the combination of constant pain and round-the-clock pain meds was not conducive to reading. I couldn't get through a paragraph of a book I had already read, let alone something new. I was surprised then when, in desperation or inspiration, I picked up a book of poems, and the spacious imagery of poetry simply opened up for me, giving me an unexpected and much needed sense of freedom. One of the high and low moments of my experience of injury and incremental recovery came when I got to graduate from a standard walker, the kind you put tennis balls on, to a rollator type walker. I was excited and then somewhat daunted when the transition became yet another lesson in the multiple layers and curves hidden within progress. I wrote about it in Stopped by a Thumb. New walker, bigger wheels, small turning radius, much easier. Move easier, go further, seem to stand straighter. Luxury seat, rest at will. Images of increased freedom shimmer within easy reach. New pain, not in back or leg, but in thumb. Throws off balance. Take it very slowly. Rest. Stop. Wait for thumb pain to subside. How long? Hours? Days? Minutes feel endless when new freedom is stopped by a thumb. Finally, some years ago, when asked to write about the spiritual in my life, it came out not as the expected essay, but as poetry. The spiritual in my life includes 3 a.m. Stillwater moon path, shimmering earth, heart of summer heat, clear night, deep silence, star-studded sky, joyous spring wind, glorious sun-glistening icy branches, majestic cloud-burnished sunset, pink, purple, yellow dawn promises, drawn out of self, following the resonance of a Tibetan bell, traveling into the infinite, and there connecting with a universal soul. The refreshment of a quiet moment in the sunstream of my living room window, the clock ticking, the fire settling, a bird chirping, time passing while momentarily standing still. Watching my husband converse earnestly, sincerely offering being-to-being connection to everyone he meets. The spontaneous welling up of music, heart voice, old hymn, Girl Scout song, lullaby, tuneless rustling. Pleasure in my daughter's face as she tells about her day, the shape of her eyes, the curl of her lashes, the sound of her laughter, the warmth of a sleepy hug. Being captured, momentarily distracted by the sparkling gleams of a window crystal, light refracting tiny rainbows shimmering around me. That feeling of perfection and connection that comes unexpectedly as I dig in the garden and pause to soak in the day, the earth, the sky, and the miracle of growth around me. The oft repeated but always unique, slowly growing awareness that meditation, affirmations, prayer are being fulfilled. Feeling humble, grateful that there is a power that can work through me, for me, in the world, which is so simply accessed and so unconsciously correct in response. The solemnity and connectedness of recognizing that we are today as dependent on the sun for our way of life as our prehistoric pagan ancestors. Dramatic stabbing forks of lightning, fearsome crash of thunder, cleansing relief offered by passage of storm. Action based on conviction, waking up happy.
My name is Deidra. I think you all know me. My pronouns are she and her. Let's put it this way. I'm hoping this is becoming a poem. Save for that one picture, I would not have known my grandfather if he were walking just past me. Black umbrella in hand, the same debonair hat the men wore in the 30s, perched on his well-shaped, handsome head. Those thick eyebrows hunched together, listening to a secret in his heart he never told me. Was he a generous father to his 3 daughters, a loving husband to Mamir? I heard he liked to play music, Was he a piano man? Did he dance as gracefully as my own dad? Another man I did not really know. Would they have shared supper on a hot summer afternoon, listening to a jazz band and exchanging dance notes? My dad, an expert at tango and cha-cha-cha, and my grandpa, was his name James? And did he always wear that thin mustache just above those curving lips that were about to laugh at something I might have said?
Good morning. I'm Susanne Bounds, and I use she, her pronouns. I write to learn for the most part. Putting words on paper helps me grow and change, whether it is poetry or writing a service for First UU or jotting notes from something I read or to sort my thoughts about an idea or issue. I read a poem titled Hokusai Says by Roger Keyes in our Soul Matters materials for this month, and a line struck me. He says, "Keep changing. You just get more who you really are." The poem I have for this morning's service reflects this. I wrote the first draft while at the American Women Nature Writers Conference in Maine in 1998. It was longer then and had two voices when it first emerged. When I looked at it again this last week or so, I saw a clearer connection between the two voices, saw my growth in the years since, and felt growth as I revised. At the time of the first draft, I did not know about white supremacy as a system of thought. I only knew that something about sitting in this conference, all of us seeming so self-congratulatory, look at us caring about the environment, angered me. I only knew that it felt elitist and hypocritical, and what I can only describe as unreal or ungrounded. I have learned more about my power by revisiting and revising this poem, titled, for now, Mother Nature Speaks. Yeah, it's great that y'all get to talk with each other about me. I'm a luxury, you know, a commodity to be bought for money, like everyone and everything else in this country. It's a luxury to think and philosophize and write and rhapsodize me. It's great y'all get to think about what who should do to take care of me. As if I want you to take care of me. As if I need you to take care of me. As if I can't take care of myself, given a chance. What you really mean is who should have control over me. You want to say who has access or not, who belongs, who doesn't, all without asking me what I want. You profess you want to save me, but you no longer know me, if you ever did, because you have grown so far away from yourself. You see me as other, to be saved or used or abused or admired at will. And you know, what you're really doing is talking about yourselves. You're only worried about me because you're worried about you. Look carefully at what destroys you. Maybe, just maybe, that also destroys me. I do not want to be put on a pedestal, nor ravished. I do not want to be fought over, neglected, be experimented on, nor ignored. I want to be shared and shared with, loved and respected and trusted. What will you give up for me? When will you find your way back? How far will you go?
I credit writing with helping me survive some very rough patches. Today, my life is sweet, and I don't feel compelled to write poems of hurt. Now I write to become aware. Flannery O'Connor said, "I write because I don't know what I think until I read what I say." That's exactly the way I felt when I faced some assignments in a recent poetry class I audited on the MSU campus. The assignment for my first poem was write about something in the news. So I wrote to figure out how I benefited from white supremacy. The poem is called Promises Broken, after Walt Whitman. When I was called out on my farm girl white privilege, when the facts were laid before me of public subsidies, when I considered the billions in farm payments, how quickly I was offended, saying, "Not me," my Iowa farmhouse having been so poorly insulated, clothes left in the bathroom froze to the wall. But I turned to wondering how many farmers of color I knew. Iowa said to have so few they could be gathered in a bank basement, and I acknowledged knowing not a single one of them. There is no justification for my white ancestors being deemed worthy of a section of land and the bounty of public welfare. Newly freed slaves were promised 40 acres and a mule, the offer quickly withdrawn, and land returned to slaveholders. How different would their lives be? How much richer would my life be had the promise been kept? My second poem was written at a time when I was wrestling with the church budget. The assignment was to write a one-sentence poem, a long one-sentence poem. It's called Heart Sense, with sense being spelled C-E-N-T-S. Crystal Quaid announced it on the floor of the Missouri House, for which we applauded her, and religious communities have upheld it. A budget is a moral document, dollars and cents, goals and priorities, a statement of values and principles. And we, a religious community who looks to our own 7 principles as the binder that cements us together, must ponder every expense, considering the question, does this support who we say we are? The minister's salary saying we visit the sick, food pantry donations saying we give food to the hungry, a gender-neutral bathroom saying we welcome all cisgender and gender fluid. Considering the sleek new printer, how it communicates our message, possibly asking, what would Jesus cut? Because no budget line must hint of bad economics or bad religion. Hashtag 2,000 verses of biblical wisdom regarding poverty and justice to guide us. And those Christians among us might say, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is also. Referencing Matthew 6:21, because justice requires more than religiosity, it being hypocrisy to act without heart and without compassion, giving and spending not simply economic acts, but moral ones. I close with words by Margaret Wrinkle from her recent New York Times essay called, "Thank God for the Poets." Thank God for our poets here in the mildness of April and in the winter storms alike, who help us find the words our own tongues feel too swollen to speak. Thank God for the poets who teach our blinkered eyes to see these gifts the world has given us and what we owe it in return.